Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to dig into a really fascinating ancient Buddhist text. It's called the Cūḷahatthipadopamasuttaṃ.
That's quite a name. It translates to the shorter elephant footprint simile.
Right. And our mission today is to unpack this text and see how it teaches a pretty profound lesson about, well, figuring out what's true, about gaining real conviction.
And it does this through a really captivating analogy involving, as the name suggests, elephant footprints. It's quite clever.
Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in ancient India near a place called Savatthi, and there's this prominent Brahmin, Jāṇussoṇi, riding along in his, fancy white chariot. He sees an ascetic, a wanderer named Pilotika, coming towards him.
A chance encounter.
Exactly. So Jāṇussoṇi, being curious, asks Pilotika, hey, where are you coming from? And Pilotika says he's just been visiting Samta Gautama,
who we now know as the Buddha.
Right. And Jāṇussoṇi pushes a bit further, asking basically, so do you think this Gautama guy actually knows his stuff? Is he wise, discerning?
And Pilotika's answer is really something. He starts by saying, who am I to judge someone like Gautama? Which is quite humble.
Yeah, a bit self-deprecating.
But then he just comes right out and declares Gautama is Sammasambuddho.
Which means?
A fully, perfectly enlightened one. The supreme awakened being, you could say. The best among gods and humans. I mean, it's the highest possible praise.
Wow. Okay, so that's a huge statement. What could possibly lead Pilotika, who just said he wasn't qualified to judge, to make such an incredibly strong claim? What convinced him?
Well, Pilotika explains it himself using this simile. He says, look, it's like an expert elephant tracker going into a forest. The tracker sees a really big elephant footprint, deep and wide.
Okay.
And just from that footprint, the tracker concludes, this must be a truly great large elephant. Pilotika says, similarly, he saw 4 distinct footprints, or signs, related to Gautama that led him to his conclusion.
4 signs. What were they?
Well, the first one was watching these really learned people warriors, other Brahmins, wealthy householders, people skilled in arguments, ready for a debate.
Right, the intellectual heavyweights of the time.
Exactly. They'd come prepared to challenge Gautama. But then, after Gautama taught them his Dhamma, his teachings, they didn't argue. They just became his students, his disciples. That was the first footprint.
So seeing sharp minds won over not by rhetoric, but by the teaching itself. Okay, what's the second?
The second involved other ascetics, people already on a spiritual path, maybe with their own views, also coming to debate Gautama.
Right. Maybe even rivals.
Possibly. But same result. They hear the teaching, and not only do they become disciples, they actually ask to be ordained as monks, to completely renounce their old lives. A huge commitment.
That is a big step. Okay, so 2 down. What are the third and fourth footprints?
These are connected. Pilotika observed these newly ordained monks, the ones who had just given everything up. They'd go off, practice diligently, live simply in solitude, and very quickly, he says, they achieved the ultimate goal, arhatship, full liberation, enlightenment.
Wow, cool.
That's what he observed. And these new arahants, these liberated beings, would declare, before we weren't really ascetics or Brahmins or arahants. We were living wrongly. Now we are. Pilotika points to witnessing this attainment, this profound transformation and realization in others, as his third, and specifically calling out the attainment itself, his fourth mark.
Yeah.
That sealed his conviction about Gautama, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, the community.
Okay, that's incredibly powerful. Seeing people not just intellectually convinced, but fully transforming their lives and reaching the absolute pinnacle of spiritual development because of these teachings, you can see why Pilotika was so convinced. Those are some seriously impressive footprints.
Definitely. It's compelling evidence based on observable results.
And there's a but coming, isn't there? The story doesn't stop with Pilotika's conviction. You hinted that maybe even this isn't the whole story, according to the Buddha himself.
Exactly. Pilotika's insight is good. It's valid based on what he saw, but it's not yet the complete picture, according to the Buddha's later explanation.
Okay, so let's follow the story. Jāṇussoṇi, the Brahmin in the chariot, he's obviously impressed by what Pilotika told him.
Very impressed. So much so that he seeks out the Buddha himself.
And he tells the Buddha the whole conversation about Pilotika, the footprints, the conviction.
Yes, he recounts the entire thing. The Buddha listens patiently. And then he says something quite crucial. He says, Brahmin, the elephant footprint simile is not fully complete with this much.
Okay. So the Buddha is saying Pilotika's analogy, while insightful, is missing something. He didn't quite get it right.
Not that he got it wrong, exactly, but that it wasn't fully developed. The Buddha then proceeds to give the complete version of the elephant footprint simile, and this is where it gets really detailed and instructive about deep discernment.
I'm intrigued. How does the Buddha refine it?
The Buddha says, imagine a truly skilled elephant hunter, not just a tracker going into the forest. This hunter also finds a large footprint, big, long, wide.
Okay, same starting point.
But here's the key difference. This expert hunter does not immediately jump to the conclusion, a great bull elephant.
Why not? It's a big footprint.
Because, the Buddha explains, this hunter knows the forest. He knows there are other types of elephants that can leave large footprints. There might be female elephants who are dwarfed but still have large feet, or tall female elephants, or even tall male elephants without tusks. Their footprints could look like the great elephants.
Okay, so the first sign, even an impressive one, isn't conclusive. There could be other explanations. That makes sense. Don't jump to conclusions based on initial data.
Precisely. So the skilled hunter needs more evidence. He follows the tracks, he sees the large footprint, yes, and he notices the grass nearby is pressed down deeply, indicating weight.
Getting warmer.
Still not enough. He continues following. Now he sees the large, deep footprint, the pressed down grass, and he spots marks high up on the trees where tusks have scraped.
Ah, tusk marks. That narrows it down.
It helps. But even then, the Buddha says, the truly wise hunter doesn't conclude with absolute certainty. Maybe it was just a tall elephant passing through.
Wow, this hunter is rigorous. So what's the final straw? What clinches it?
The final proof comes only when the hunter has seen all the previous signs, the large deep print, the pressed grass, the high tusk marks, and he sees branches broken off high up in the trees, higher than other elephants could reach. And then, after all that indirect evidence, he actually sees the great bull elephant itself.
He sees the actual elephant.
Yes, whether it's walking, standing, sitting, or lying down. Only when he has gathered all the signs and has the direct visual confirmation, then and only then does he finally conclude with certainty, okay, this is indeed the great bull elephant.
That is a much more thorough process. It's about accumulating evidence, testing hypotheses, and ultimately seeking direct confirmation. So how does this incredibly detailed analogy apply to understanding the Buddha and the path to awakening? That's the real question, isn't it?
Exactly. The Buddha then maps this whole process onto the spiritual path, onto how a disciple develops unshakable conviction in the Tathagata, the Buddha, and his teachings.
So what's the equivalent of finding that first large footprint?
That's like someone hearing the Dhamma, the Buddha's teaching. They hear it, it resonates, maybe they gain some initial faith or inspiration, and reflecting on, say, the complexities and stresses of ordinary life, they decide, okay, I want to pursue this seriously, and they renounce the household life to become a monk or nun.
So taking that first big step, making a commitment based on initial inspiration and faith, that's the first footprint. Makes sense. What about the deeper tracks, the pressed grass?
That corresponds to cultivating ethical conduct, sila. The newly ordained person commits to living by strict ethical guidelines, abandoning harm, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, harsh speech, idle chatter, and so on. It involves refining one's conduct in every way, even down to things like how one eats or accepts things.
It sounds incredibly detailed.
It is. It's about creating a foundation of integrity and blamelessness. The text says this disciplined conduct brings an inner happiness, a freedom from remorse. It's like clearing the ground so you can see the path more clearly. This ethical purity is like seeing those deeper, clearer tracks.
So building a strong ethical foundation gives you a clearer view, a more reliable basis for further investigation. Okay, what about the tusk marks high on the trees? The next level of evidence.
That maps onto sense restraint, Indriya. This is where the practitioner learns to guard their senses. When they see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think of something, they don't just get swept away by attraction or repulsion.
So not getting caught up in likes and dislikes based on sense experiences?
Exactly. They maintain equanimity and awareness at the point of sense contact. This prevents the mind from becoming agitated or clouded by desires and aversions. It brings a deeper inner peace and stability. It's like seeing those higher, more specific signs, the tusk marks. You're developing a more refined awareness.
Okay, ethics, sense restraint.
Right.
What's next? Maybe the broken branches high up.
Getting there. The next stage is mindfulness and clear comprehension, sati sampajanya. This means cultivating constant awareness of what you're doing, thinking, and feeling, moment by moment. Acting with clear understanding in all activities, walking, eating, talking, even dressing.
Just being fully present and aware all the time.
Essentially, yes. And understanding the purpose and suitability of your actions. It's a very grounded, clear-seeing awareness. Following this, the practitioner works on actively abandoning the 5 hindrances.
The 5 hindrances.
Sure.
Remind us what they are.
Sure, they are sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor, like a mental heaviness or laziness, restlessness and remorse or worry, and finally skeptical doubt. These are seen as major obstacles to mental clarity and concentration.
So actively clearing away the mental weeds or fog.
Precisely. Purifying the mind from these hindrances is crucial. Now, after all this foundational work, ethics, sense restraint, mindfulness, clearing hindrances, the practitioner is ready for deeper states. This leads to the jhānas.
The states of deep meditative absorption we hear about.
Yes. The Sutta describes attaining the 4 jhānas, states characterized by profound calm, joy, bliss, and finally, deep equanimity. These are incredibly powerful and refined states of mind. You could say these are like finding those high, broken branches, unmistakable signs of a very powerful presence. They are explicitly called Tathagata's footprints in the text.
Wow. So reaching these deep meditative states, surely that's the final proof. That seems like seeing the elephant.
But here's the twist, mirroring the hunter analogy. The Buddha says that even upon attaining these profound jhanas, the noble disciple has not yet reached the final conclusion that the Buddha is fully enlightened, the Dhamma perfectly taught, the Sangha well practiced.
Still not. After all that practice and attainment, why not?
Because, like the hunter who has seen all the signs but not the elephant itself, the disciple has experienced profound states resulting from the path, but hasn't yet directly seen the ultimate truth the path leads to. The jhanas are footprints, however impressive, not the elephant.
Okay, my mind is slightly blown. So if even the jhanas aren't the final confirmation, what is? What constitutes actually seeing the great elephant in this spiritual sense?
The ultimate seeing, the final undeniable proof that completes the simile, comes with the attainment of what are called the 3 knowledges, or divijja. Direct, personal, experiential knowledge.
The 3 knowledges, okay, what are they?
The first is the recollection of past lives, bhubanivāsanusatinya. The ability to directly remember one's own countless previous existences in detail. Where one was born, what one experienced.
Okay, direct memory of past lives.
The second is the knowledge of the passing away and rebirth of beings, Cūḷahatthipadopamasuttaṃ, often called the divine eye. This is the ability to see how other beings die and are reborn according to their karma, their actions, seeing the bigger picture of cause and effect across lifetimes.
Seeing the workings of karma directly. And the third?
The third, and this is the absolute culmination, is the knowledge of the destruction of the taints āsavas. The taints, or āsavas, are the deep-seated defilements. The taint of sensual desire, the taint of becoming or craving for existence, and the taint of ignorance.
The ignorance of
the 4 noble truths. So this final knowledge is the direct, personal, unmistakable realization of suffering, its true cause, its complete cessation, and the path leading to that cessation. And with that comes the direct knowing that all the defilements, the taints, are utterly destroyed within oneself.
So it's not just understanding the 4 noble truths intellectually, but knowing them through direct experience and seeing the root causes of suffering eradicated in oneself.
Exactly. It's at that point the text says, when the disciple knows directly for themselves.
Right.
Destroyed his birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more of this state of being. Basically, liberation is achieved and known directly. That is seeing the great elephant.
That's the direct perception of the goal itself?
Yes. Only then, having personally realized the ultimate truth that the Buddha pointed towards, does the disciple finally conclude with unshakable conviction. The Blessed One is indeed Sammasambuddho, the Dhamma is well expounded, the Sangha is well practiced. The conviction comes not from observing others, not just from impressive practice stages, but from seeing the ultimate reality for oneself.
That is a really profound shift. It moves beyond faith based on evidence, however strong, to certainty based on direct personal realization. It's the difference between reading the map and arriving at the destination.
Beautifully put. That's the core message of the complete simile.
So what happened to Jāṇussoṇi, the Brahmin, who started this whole inquiry? How did he react after hearing the Buddha's full explanation?
He was completely won over. The Sutta says he was deeply impressed and declared right then and there that he took refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for the rest of his life. He became a lay follower.
So just hearing the explanation of the complete path, the rigorous process of discernment leading to direct knowledge, was enough to inspire that level of conviction in him. He understood the depth required.
It seems so. His understanding shifted from relying on Pilotika's second-hand account, however impressive, to grasping the Buddha's explanation of the path to first-hand realization.
Okay, so bringing this all back home, what does this deep dive into an ancient story about elephant footprints mean for us, for you listening? How can we apply this?
Well, I think there are some really practical takeaways, regardless of whether you're on a spiritual path or just trying to navigate information in, any field.
Like what?
First, pretty obviously, beware of superficial judgments. That first big footprint looked convincing, right? But the wise hunter knew better. We should be cautious about drawing firm conclusions based only on initial, even impressive-looking evidence.
Right. Don't just latch on to the first compelling piece of data or the most charismatic presentation. Dig deeper.
Exactly. Which leads to the second point, the value of rigorous investigation. True understanding, real conviction, requires going beyond the surface, meticulously examining all the signs, the details, questioning assumptions. Like the hunter looking for the tusk marks and broken branches.
So be thorough. Don't cut corners in your search for understanding.
Third, and this is perhaps the deepest insight from the Simile's completion, the power of direct experience. While observing others, like Pilotika did, or following the steps, like the disciple practicing ethics and meditation, is crucial, the most unshakable conviction comes from personally realizing the truth you're investigating.
Seeing the elephant for yourself, so to speak, whether that's mastering a skill through practice, verifying a scientific claim through your own experiment, or in the Sutta's context, realizing spiritual truths directly.
Precisely. It moves beyond belief in something to knowledge of something. And finally, it shows that learning and building conviction is often an iterative process. It builds layer by layer. Each footprint, each stage of evidence gets you closer, refining the picture until you arrive at that clear, direct understanding.
It's a journey, not a single leap. Okay, that's a lot to think about. A framework for discernment, really.
It really is a timeless one.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. What elephant footprints are you currently observing in your own life? Maybe in your work, your studies, your understanding of the world? What are those big initial signs that have caught your attention? And thinking about the Buddha's complete simile, what deeper evidence, what more rigorous investigation, or perhaps what kind of direct experience might be needed for you to move from initial impression to a truly informed, unshakable conclusion? That's a great question to ponder. How do we move beyond just seeing the footprint to truly understanding the elephant?
Definitely something to reflect on. How do you build your conviction?